Sorry, Judd.
All right, well, I've got 6 o'clock, so let's get started. For everyone, when we're in person, we always begin with the pledge and then a brief moment of silence in honor of our servicemen and women. We are keeping with that tradition, so Eric has a picture of the flag, and so if you'll join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We're going to go through our agenda tonight as it's been published. We had a continued public hearing that is no longer needed because the application was revised to eliminate the need for any area variance. This was the application for 3312 Fallbrook Park filed by Richard Quell and Kelly Vestal. So I know we have several members of our community that joined us. If anyone was here for that application, I just want to let you know that we won't be conducting any business on it tonight as it's been withdrawn. The only application we have to review tonight is for property at 3564 Oticiana Point. This was filed by Robert and Susan Taylor. They're seeking an area variance for the front setback to be 27.4 feet when 60 feet is required, resulting in a variance of 32.6 feet within the residential Lake District. They're going to be represented tonight by Anthony Venezia of Venezia Associates. And Anthony, if you would take it away.
Yes. So currently the Taylors reside on Oticiana Point in the town, and they have a single family residence and an attached garage. Currently they have a side load attached garage with a driveway that kind of wraps around the south side of the residence, and they access it. The doors are on the south side. So what the plan is to put an additional garage on the east side of the home that faces the private road that they access their house from. And in that, when we're doing this, we are going to be removing a large portion of the driveway, and that driveway is going to be reverted to grass. We are going to be using a grass paved solution, so it's going to be that like a polymer geogrid that goes underneath the grass. So we do the polymer geogrid, we fill it with soil, the grass goes on top of it, and it just, I mean, in the end it'll look like grass, but it'll be able to support a vehicle. So if there needs to be vehicles and extra parking, for some reason, we're keeping that option open. What we're going to do with the drainage, we're going to connect the drainage into the existing conveyance system. So right now there are some 4-inch lines that run to the lake. And into a field inlet on the south side of the house. We're going to tie back into that existing drainage to get this drainage out into the lake. There's a new proposed asphalt driveway. It's going to be a little bit wider than the entryway that's there now, but it's going to be right in front of that building. And then we're just going to put a drainage channel, like a trench drain, in front of that garage to take any of that water that falls just on the driveway. So there is no flooding in the garage. It'll take it around to the south to that existing drainage system and away to the lake. So that's typically what we're doing. We're going to be under the coverage and things of that nature. We're actually less coverage than we were before, even with the addition. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Let's open it to the board for questions on this application.
Anthony, could you further explain this polymer seal driveway? This is new to me. So
what it is, it's a geogrid. So it's a gridded material. It's like a paver material. It's a paver, but it's plastic. So there's a small section of gravel that gets put in, and then this geogrid paver. It's a grid that's made out of a polymer, and then you put the soil in that, and then on top of the soil you plant grass, so it is grass in the end. It's just a structured grass. So if the Taylors want to be able to move a car onto that, it wouldn't sink in. It would support a car and not affect the lawn. It would hold it up. Even if the lawn was a little bit saturated, it wouldn't create a mess, and it would create a solid platform to be able to use that for overflow driveway.
So is this something like porous paver 2.0? Is this?
It's in that type of realm, but it's a little bit different because you aren't using a concrete or an asphalt. You're using soil and grass. So
Okay.
when it's put in, that's all you see is grass.
But it wouldn't necessarily. You wouldn't recommend it for really heavy duty traffic.
No, I mean in some applications people use it and it can support a fire truck.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can use it in heavy duty. I mean, not every day, like a roadway
Yeah.
or something that was pulling in all the time, but it will in situations can support a vehicle. You know, you wouldn't run on it. You wouldn't want it every day, but because
Okay.
the grass would wear out, but it
Yeah.
would hold up for everyday vehicular traffic. It's just your grass wouldn't hold up as well. So in
Okay.
this situation, Mr. Taylor wanted to be able to have that option, and that was the best way we could come up with getting it to be grass, having a little bit less coverage, and still having the ability to pull a car off the side if he needs it.
Sure.
Anthony, sorry, Bob, I don't want to cut in on.
No, I'm done.
So I'm just curious for my own curiosity anyways. Is it like just as absorbent as, some of the other materials we've seen, or is it more so? I mean,
It's almost, it depending on the application, it can be more so depending on where you are. Typically in our area of, Canandaigua and the Finger Lakes, we have a lot of clay.
Mhm.
And usually you have a couple inches of topsoil and clay depending on what you are. So with this system, you have a couple inches of gravel underneath the paver. So you actually have a little bit more storage capacity. So it's a little bit better than a grass depending on what specifically is under that couple inches of topsoil.
What about like the maintenance? What's the longevity of it? I mean, is it?
There really is no maintenance. It doesn't get full, like with a typical like a paver system or a porous asphalt, there is no maintenance. You don't have to clean it, obviously. It's just grass. And with the way that it's designed and everything, the only thing that's really going to be taking the water from that is stuff that falls from the sky. So there really isn't a lot of sediment that is traveling with the water as a sheet flow and then being distributed to this system. It's pretty much just what's falling from the ground, because there is a large, on the east side of Atishana Point, the private drive, there is a large drainage swale that takes in all water that's coming across. So
Right.
there
Do you
really
guys
isn't
put
any
like a
kind of step.
subfloor and all that, like you would for like a, like a regular driveway, or I mean, like,
Yeah, there is a cut sheet on our page that you can kind of see it. There is a system. There's some gravel. There's a couple inches of gravel, and then the geopave, and then some topsoil.
So in weather like our current situation, you'd be watering it to keep the grass more vital.
Yeah, it would need to be watered to establish the grass, but once it's that, it'll act just like a normal lawn would.
Okay.
I was just curious this is the first time we've seen this. Is this
Yeah.
something new
Yeah.
or?
It's been used in other projects. There's a different style. Some of the it has been used for a driveway, a system like this, except the only difference is the soil itself has a polymer fiber built into it, and once it's put in, and after like it's compacted, it does the same thing. This is just a little bit. It's an easier way to do it. It's not as complex and expensive as a polymer reinforced soil. But it has been used on driveways on Canandaigua Lake on the west side. It might not have come to zoning, but it's
Gotcha.
come through planning.
It's interesting. It's we're always looking at stuff to obviously be more environmentally friendly. So
Yeah, this is the best way to do it and be able to support a vehicle without making a mess, to be honest.
nice.
It
All right.
works really well.
This is not gonna enhance any permeability towards the lake any more than grass.
No,
It's just gonna allow him to not rut up his yard.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean,
okay.
there's really not a lot of difference between if he was just to put soil back in and reseed it. It's got a little bit more stability to it. Well, a lot more stability to it. So like I said, if he wants to pull something off, he can.
So there's like no benefit, like Dave was saying, there's no real drainage benefit.
No, I mean, the only benefit is structural. It
Okay.
pretty much acts the same as if you were just to put it back. It's actually a step above what he can do. I mean, he's going a step above to do this
Gotcha.
instead of keeping it, because he does have he's got almost an acre on the other side. So he's kind of going a little bit above here to be able to maintain that and keep a grass,
Right.
you know.
Just for my clarification, Anthony, this grass, I guess I'll call it paver. I know what it is exactly because I researched it quite a bit myself.
Yep.
Is not included in your building structure calculation, is it?
It is not. The only thing that's included in lot coverage and building coverage would be the garage, the proposed walkway, and the new asphalt driveway, and then the existing patio that they have. So.
Yep. And you're going down in terms of your percentage of variance from what was there before.
So we would probably, to the board, see more of this in the future to reduce overall coverage.
It can be in certain applications. I mean, you're not gonna put a driveway that you're using every day in something like this. But if someone's looking for, if someone has a really long driveway and they need to do a pull off for emergency vehicles, they could use something like this. Or it's someone that wants a little bit extra parking, in the sensitive areas, they can use it.
So Anthony, let's talk a little bit about the setback. Have we granted any other variances that you're aware of for setbacks along this private
Does
drive?
the neighbor to the north have a setback on his garage? Because there's the neighbor to the north, he definitely has some sort of, I don't know what the variance is off of hand, but it's.
He's back about 40 feet.
40 feet from the pavement, and then I don't know exactly where it is, but he's not within, there's that, and then to the south, there's also a garage that's right on the pavement that's detached.
Yep.
You're just to the north there. So there are different aspects of variances. I don't know if they actually had granted or they're pre-existing non-conforming. But in the general neighborhood, there are a few situations where they do include into that private road setback. And that's what it is. It is a private driveway.
Yep. Okay. At this point, I'd like to open the hearing to anyone from the public that has a comment or a question. Just as a preface, this is an opportunity for the board to hear information from the public that we can consider in making our decision. It's not really an opportunity for the applicant to have discussions with neighbors or vice versa. So just direct all your comments and questions to the board, and we'd love to hear any information you'd like to provide. So what we'd ask you to do is at the bottom of your screen, if you click the participants box, then there's a raise hand icon you can select to indicate that you'd like to speak, and Eric will unmute you and give you the floor.
I guess specifically the Franks that are with us, if they would like to ask a question, please you have to unmute yourself. I think that you've muted yourself.
Okay, let's try that again.
Now we've got you.
This is John and Elaine Frank. We live at 3560 Otisiana Point, one door north of the Taylors. A couple of questions. When you were talking about the grass situation and detail, I'm wondering what the net gain or loss is in the grassy area, given the fact that the application is for an 816 square feet addition. Obviously, they're losing some lawn between the east side of their house and the driveway, or I should say access road. Is there a net gain or loss of grassy area?
So you remember the question, we don't really do questions to the applicant, but I'll have Mr. Venezzi speak to that in a minute. I believe what he was saying in his presentation is that the project will actually decrease the total amount of lot coverage. So that would be an increase then in the green space.
Correct.
But anything else, Mr. Frank, that you'd like to provide the board in terms of information or comment on the application?
I'm sorry, hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We just had another phone call come in that interrupted what you were saying in response to my question. Regardless of the situation, whether Mr. Taylor wants to respond or his representative, makes no difference to me as long as I have a better understanding of the net gain or loss of the grassy area, given the size of the addition.
Terrence, I'll just take it if I can. It's a net gain. We're going from a lot coverage of 16.4% down to 16%. So there's a 0.4% gain in non-porous area. Non-pervious area. So we're going to have a gain in grass area. It's not much, but there is a gain.
A gain of grassy area?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Less coverage than before.
Okay. My other question, if I may, what is the square footage of the existing garage, which I believe is a 2.5 stall garage?
I don't have that information in front of me right now. It's 27 by 22.
Well, that would be what, around somewhere around 600 square feet?
Right.
Right. Plus or minus.
Right. And if we were to add 816 square feet to that, we're looking at a little over 1,400 square feet of garage and second floor space. Is that right?
Yes. I just did the math here. 27 by 22 is 594. 24 by 34 is 816. Added together is 1410.
Right. Okay. That's a very large space. The other question I have is on the under the garage expansion page of the listing that was forwarded to us in the link from Eric. Bob Taylor did some of his own diagrams of what the property could look like before and after. And in one of the drawings, it shows the existing property looking at it from the south side, from the south end of the house, and looking at it from the east side, facing their front door and the current structure. And then, and then with additions, they show what the 3-stall or 3 garage door addition would look like from the south. And then over to the right, what it would also look like. My question is, since we live on the north side of the house, there haven't been any diagrams submitted to show what we'll be looking at. Now, what you see here under with addition and the right-hand side, it looks like the Taylors have simply taken the windows that currently face the east and just turn them over, move them around the corner, and now they're facing south. And that's fine. I understand that, and it's a good use of existing windows. My question is something similar going to be installed or built facing north, which is the side that we face? What is contemplated in terms of what we'll be looking at? That's my question.
So that's a great question, and one that you should probably have with the Taylors. Our purpose here today is to receive information from you about how you view the project, whether you have any opposition to the project.
I don't have an opposition to the project. I simply would like to know what we're going to be facing when the project is completed.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that would be a great conversation for you to have with your neighbor.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? I don't think we have anyone else in attendance, right, Eric?
Right.
Okay. All right, do we have any other questions from the board for the applicant about this setback variance?
I was just curious, obviously the existing garage is going to be returned to living space.
Yes.
Okay. And it doesn't look to me as though those windows are going to be moved. With the addition, it's just a different pattern. The windows look like they're going to remain that are facing to the south, and new windows are going to be installed over the garage the way it looks to me. Is that correct?
Why don't we let the applicant answer that question from the board?
Two things. Existing garage will remain garage. And the windows, although those are representatives of two of the elevations, we haven't had an architect complete the final plans, but our objective is to have a beautiful home. And so the windows and the configuration of the exterior of the space will be aimed at looking good from every direction, including the north. And we be certainly open to having conversations with the neighbors about configurations that are appealing.
Thank you. I always am in favor of neighbor-to-neighbor discussions. I think those are great. Any other questions from the board? No? All right. Anthony, are you comfortable closing?
Yes.
All right. Well, with that, we'll close. The board has 62 days to render a decision, but it's our custom to vote the same evening that we hear decisions. So we'll begin that process now with our deliberations. Just as a reminder, now that the application is closed and the board deliberates, our deliberations are open to the public, but we're not accepting new information at this point. This is just a discussion amongst the board that the public can listen to, but they're not participating in this discussion. So with that, Chip, you want to start us off? Any thoughts on this application?
You're muted, Chip.
There's certainly other garages which are certainly similar distance or even closer to the private road. So I don't think it takes it out of the realm of changing the character of the neighborhood. So I don't have a lot of problem with it. You're muted, Terrence.
I did the same thing, Chip. I was just saying, when I drove down there, I was trying to envision in my mind what the 27 feet would look like. It seems like it would be in character with the neighborhood. I mean, not every house is that close, but some or closer. I don't think it would be too far away from the norm. Dave, thoughts?
I agree with what Chip said, and you, I don't think it's out of the character. The only difference, it's going to be a large house, but he's got a large lot, and well, I wasn't trying to cast any aspersions other than to maybe clarify what the window was, but that obviously isn't done. So, I mean, I think he's going to build a nice house, and he's got, I don't think he's out of the realm of reason to have the variance.
Okay. Bob?
I agree with Chip. The application seems to be reasonable.
Kelly?
It doesn't sound like anything out of the, out of the ordinary. So, it is, I'm familiar with that area anyway. And I know that it can be challenging with some of the houses there, but, I don't know. I'm good with it. I have no issue.
John?
I don't think I need to vote tonight, but
We always value your opinion, John.
my opinion is that if I was voting tonight, I would be very in favor of this. I think they've done a good job keeping the lawn intact, and I am very familiar with this grass geofabric, and I think it's a great solution that I think I'd certainly encourage people to utilize as an alternative to rather than putting in more blacktop. So I'm very supportive. I think it's done a very good job.
All right. Well, let's call this one then for a vote.
Second, pull up that sheet. Oops, not that. Where is it? Okay, so for the application, CPN 20-028, Venezia Associates for Robert and Susan Taylor at 3564 Titiana Point. The applicant is requesting an area variance for 27.4 foot front setback when 60 feet is required. Shall the applicant be granted a 32.6 foot front setback area variance? Bob?
Yes.
Dave? You're muted, Dave.
Yes.
Okay. The suspense. Kelly?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
And Terrence?
Yes. All right, Eric, you ready for, or this is all recorded anyways, right?
It is. I just like to have those things up.
All right. So our decision, it's based on the descriptions and drawings provided at the public hearing held on the 16th of June, and also based on the drawings and descriptions provided on the additional dates that will come from the development office. The board has reviewed the application and determined that the benefit to the applicant does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or the community, and therefore the variance is granted. The board's decision is based upon the facts as presented during the public hearing and the following additional specific findings of fact. First, the board has found that granting this variance is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. There are similarly situated properties that have closer structures than the proposed setback on this application. The variance will not change the character of the neighborhood, and it will not have an adverse effect on the property or the neighborhood. The board has also considered the fact that the proposed application will reduce the overall lot coverage and will use, what's the exact name, Eric, of those pavers?
Grass paved 2.
Grass paved 2 pavers in order to reduce and limit the amount of asphalt needed for the property. In addition, the board is going to put the following 2 conditions on this variance approval. The first is that the variance granted is specific to the most recent plan submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and any change in that plan shall invalidate the variance. And I'm going to condition that to allow for, the architect to finish their renderings, and the plan is just in terms of the layout of the property, the location of the structures, and the location of other impervious surfaces. Number 2, the variance is conditioned on building permits being issued within 1 year of the date the variance is granted. Failure to obtain building permits within 1 year shall invalidate the variance. Do we have anything else that any member of the board would like to add to that decision?
Yes. I'm not sure whether you're going to be putting verbatim what Terrence just said in the report, Eric, but, and I'm bringing this up not to correct you, Terrence, but to just clarify that these really are not pavers that they're installing. It's really a rolled out type of product, and it's a large product that it's not even rolled out. They bring it out in pieces that are very large, and then they kind of pin it to the ground. So I don't really think calling it a paver is really an accurate description.
Yeah, I don't care. It's whatever you want to call it. I mean, the product name is Grass Pave 2. So maybe we'll just say the Grass Pave 2 product. I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Anything else that anyone would like to add? All right. I just want to ask Anthony really quick. You understand the way that I modified that first standard condition about the current plans?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, with that, we'll go back into board business. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of our May 2020 meeting?
All right, we're done.
I motion.
Second.
Was that Bob that seconded?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. Eric, do you want to give us just a really brief highlight of next month?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we have, I believe, 9 new applications for area variances. A lot of them are relatively small. People putting a shed in their front yard, or new building with setback variance requested. There may be one with an interpretation. We'll see how that plays out. But generally, it's smaller applications, with the exception of the Summer Haze one that you guys have kind of seen before, right on North Menteith, when they're coming to their home. So everybody responded back to me in that email. Thank you very much. Seems like people were generally in favor, if they had a preference, of trying to fit it all in one meeting. So we'll try to do that. Just make sure everybody reviews the applications, and we can kind of push it on through. Keep it quick.
Yeah, my plan, just so everyone knows, we'll obviously give the time needed to make an informed decision, but my goal is to try to allot about 20 minutes per application. So with, 9 applications, that's 180 minutes. That's 3 hours just on applications. Not even engaging in the deliberation. So I may try to push it even a little bit quicker than that.
This is what the draft looks like for next month.
Bob, you're on mute.
20 minutes maximum. So maybe we'll get lucky, Terrence, too, if on some.
Well, I think a couple of them, just judging from my interaction with you guys, I've been working with you for quite a while now, probably won't even take near 20 minutes. The sleep one, I would think. So there's a few that maybe we can gain a little time on. but
Eric, I think it would be helpful if you could advise the applicants just in advance that we do have a full docket and that we will be looking for a brief presentation, that the board will be prepared, and we're going to target 10 minutes per application. That way I've got a little bit of extra room if needed.
okay.
Terrence, if you don't mind me making a suggestion,
Go ahead.
maybe as the meetings are progressing, maybe you get to the halfway point or get halfway through them, you might want to go into executive session so that they're fresh in everyone's mind. And then you'll also get a better handle on the timing of everything based on how long you have to deliberate for the first 4 or 5. Just a suggestion. Don't need to, maybe it's not going well, or going well and you don't need to do that, but just a suggestion.
Okay, well, that's good. I probably will also take a break, a brief break halfway through. 3 hours is a long time for anyone to sit. So we'll probably take a 5-minute recess about halfway through. All right, I think that's it then, Eric, right?
Yeah, unless you want to talk about what the ordinance committee is up to.
No, not unless there's a specific referral that they're asking for us to give an opinion on.
No, not yet.
All right. I'd say let them do their good work, and when they're ready for us to give some insight, we can.
All right.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
About what happened in the last meeting as far as the Fallbrook Park thing? And I'm just trying to understand where the policy is for the board, because it was turning south. It was pretty well obvious that it wasn't going to be approved the way it was. And then it was, the motion came up to take it into the next meeting. And my understanding of the way this has worked in the past a lot has been, we're there to adjudicate these issues, whether it's going to be a yes or a no. And I'm not interested in just being miserable, although some people would say that's Kelly, enough. Anyway, my point is,
Kelly, mute that.
the point is, if it's the best policy to move these on to the next meeting, and I'm not interested in throwing people out so they can't review it for a year. And I'm just trying to understand what is the best. Is this easiest for the development office? Is it, is it best for the board? And that's all. I'm just wondered if there would be comments on that, because I can see this happening a lot, that it's just not going well. Shall we adjourn this and move it on to the next meeting, and then they're giving them time to readjust the thing? And maybe that's the best way this is supposed to occur. Obviously, something happened. They pulled out of it.
So my opinion is this, Dave. This is a long time issue, right? That we've always wrestled with. Somebody comes with an application, and Chip's been on this board the longest. He's seen this more than anyone, but it's kind of like, let's ask for, the biggest, thing we can possibly think of, see how the board responds. And then when we dial it back a little bit, they'll be all happy. Right. And we do see some of that. My own personal preference is I kind of go with my gut on these. I think I can tell when somebody's acting in bad faith, and maybe when they've thought they've come in with a really good project, maybe it's more than we're comfortable with. But in those instances, I'm more open to letting them amend their application and giving them time to do that, just so they don't have to pay the additional fees of, when we vote them down and then they come forward with a new project, which is fine, and they could, come back a month later, but then they have to pay a new fee, if I understand correct, Eric, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm with
that's for the town. That's.
Yeah. It is a tough issue, though.
I'm with Dave. I think that it's at one point there's gamesmanship involved, and I'm uncomfortable with that in the sense that if people are newcomers to this process, have never come to a ZBA meeting and don't really know how we operate, they could be, if they're not seasoned veterans and have professional spokesmen, they could be one and done. Where people who have been around the block, it's not their first rodeo, they get into the gamesmanship. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think that it kind of separates out different kinds of applicants. And so I'm not totally comfortable with it. I'm sure it must have worked for this Fallbrook case, but I'm not quite sure that I have faith in the process because I'm confused. And maybe that's the way Dave feels too. I'm not sure.
I can say with some confidence, I don't think we're going to be ever going to eliminate the games that some applicants will play with the board. It will only switch tactics.
Yeah. We've been kind of dealing with this, it seems like, since I've been on the board. Like, I know we've had this discussion before where we try to be a little more, not necessarily hard-nosed, but like, you know, are we gonna vote to reopen or allow them to play this angle? And it's such a, you know, it's difficult for us to be trying to read people's minds and where their head is at. I don't know. I agree with Eric that I don't think we're ever going to be able to get rid of it, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to like kind of counteract it if it seems to be happening more. I don't know. I mean, if there's any suggestions on how to be more follow like a diligent approach, then, you know, so be it. But so far, I think this is kind of a rehashed conversation from the past, in my opinion. But I don't know how to fix it. So
I think leaving it the way that it actually happened the last month is not a bad way. Let the chairman and or other board members kind of, you know, direct it a bit and give them some options. I mean, if you absolutely didn't want them to do anything, we could have said no, but I don't think any of us felt that. So I sort of feel good about the way it, you know, turned out.
And how did it turn out? What did they do to change the variance? I mean, to pull back on the variance. What amendment did they make, Eric?
Partly it was related to an error on their part of not calculating a pre-existing building footprint in. So when they added that in, it raised their existing footprint up, and then it was a pre-existing nonconformity. And then they reduced their proposed building footprint by moving the garage or shrinking it, so the setback would be larger. So they reduced their building footprint and they properly calculated in what was their previous building footprint, and they ended up below where they were previously.
Right. I appreciate the closure because I was mystified and guessing what they might have done to make a change.
I was particularly worried because Terrence wasn't going to maybe be here tonight.
You're it.
But good question and discussion, Dave.
Well, you know, Eric was the one that brought it up, and I think maybe that's a good way to do it because obviously the development officer is in favor of, you know, adjourning the thing. Maybe that's the best way to go. I said no just because I wanted to make sure I would talk about this because it is a policy. It is something, and I don't think it comes up that much, but nonetheless, sometimes I know we move so many of them to the next meeting, and it hasn't always gone this well. So anyway.
Well, at the end of the day, it's always on us as a board. Somebody's got to make that motion. Somebody's got to second it, and then it's got to pass.
Right.
And we can always be tough if we want to be tough.
Right. Well, I was going to say that, you know, I guess it depends on how we want to be viewed by the public too, right? I mean, like, do we want to be a board that's, you know, trying to help and, you know, help these people and give advice, or do we just want to be hard-nosed and, you know?
You want to be just.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's always easy to vote against something when it's already been approved.
Dave, we have you on the board, so we don't really need to be hard-nosed.
Well, I see, you know, I agree with everybody on this one.
Right.
The process is less than perfect, but it could be a lot worse. And some people do come in and they swing for the fences. They want the home run. They want everything. And sometimes we can't make their dream come true. It just, because they're asking there for too much. That's the way it hits me sometimes.
Well,
I think
say,
so.
I don't think anybody's ever swinging for the fences. You know, there's a lot of stuff that people do eliminate, but it's also a matter of kind of happiness maximization. You play a game with the board of how much you think you might be able to get away with while still kind of staying within what you'd like to see, but maybe it's not completely minimized, to Dave's point about, you know, we request applicants minimize their requested variance. But, you know, it's a weird perception that you play with yourself when you're designing these.
Well, and also, I mean, I've seen us, like, all have a different opinion on some of the things. And one in particular comes to mind is the Cooney project where, you know, I mean, there was other options, you know, and Dave, I think Dave and I were the, you know, the ones that were kind of tough on her. And, you know, but she's an attorney. She was well aware of what some of those things were. And did she really need those, you know, because of her washer dryer to be on the line or whatever the heck it was, you know, but so I think we do a good job as a board. I don't know if we need to change anything, but that's my personal opinion. And, you know, they can tell me.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, they're not all trying to hit the home run.
Right.
If
Well, some
everybody
are.
was
Some
building a fudge factor where then they could come back to, you know, putting more in and building in that they could pull back, then I think we would be a different kind of, we'd be doing a different kind of business. That's not the typical.
Don't make the meeting go too long, guys.
I know, right? By the way, I don't have my video on because I'm extremely sunburnt. So just letting you know, I was wearing sunscreen.
I will make a motion at 6:47 to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Aye. Any nays? All right. We'll see everyone next month.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay.